Okay, so I'm going to talk about the idea of the church's teaching on sex. Where does it come from? What is the church's position on sex? If you listen to popular culture, if you listen to television comedians and newspaper articles and movies and music, you get the impression that all the church does is just say no sex. That's it, no sex. Oh, I hate sex. Blah, blah, bad thing. And people will tell you, boy, the church sure seems to have a hang-up about sex. That's all you guys talk about. Really? That's all we talk about? Have you seen billboards? Have you seen magazine covers? Have you seen movies? Have you watched TV shows? That's all we talk about? No, I don't think so. I think it's the other way around. We have to talk about it because the culture is perverting it. So of course we talk about it. The best understanding that we can think of when it comes to sex is that we are participants and imitators in the life of God. And that's why sex is sacred. It's not sacred just because it's kind of private. And it's all of that because of what it is by its nature. Sex is an involvement in the creative act of God. When we look at the big picture of man and woman, male and female, the complementarity between male and female tells us something even about God and His relationship to us. The male comes to the empty womb and brings life to it, brings the life force to it. The female receives that life force. This is one of the understandings when our blessed Lord refers to God as Father, that He is the source of life. Try talking about this theology to a group of feminists. They'll go crazy. But God, life issues forth from God and we receive it. It's why the church is the bride of Christ. That Christ, the male, brings life to the church. And the union between the male and the female brings forth new life. And that new life is representative of the union of the male and the female, the mother and the father. That's why one of the doctors of the church once said, "He who will not have the church as his mother cannot have God as his father." There's this wonderful relationship between God and humanity, between Christ and the church. And when human beings get to participate in this reality, we do something that the angels do not have in their nature the power to do. The angels can't create new life. They can't be participants in the creation of new life. Angels are neither can neither procreate nor are they procreated. As Thomas Aquinas tells us wonderfully, each angel is its own species because it doesn't have parents, nor will it ever have children. So this act of procreation is an imitation of what happens in the Holy Trinity. Think about the Holy Trinity for a moment. We have God the Father, and we have God the Son. This is it might be a little early in the morning for some of this philosophy, but bear with me for a moment. What does the eternal God, before there's anything, when there's just God, what does God, the infinite mind of God, think about? That mind can think about forever. God thinks about Himself. And because He's infinite, His thought is never exhausted. because it's infinity thinking about infinity. And so what's produced? When he thinks about himself, what does he produce? He produces the image of himself. The Greeks called it the logos. We translate it the word. He produces and brings forth the Son. But since God is infinite and eternal, this moment has always been the case. God has always been, the Father has always been generating himself as the Son. Always. And because God the Father is infinite and God the Son is infinite, the relationship between them begets another, who is also infinite and also eternal. It is the spirit of the love between Father and Son, and we have the Holy Trinity. And that is the model of the family. And when we take that infinite spiritual act of, I don't want to say creation, but loosely saying creation, of being begotten, when we bring that down into the material world, that's what happens with husband and wife as they generate a child in the act of procreation. This is sacred, heavy-duty stuff. You don't get to take this and slap it on a magazine cover and sell it for a couple of bucks. This is the very nature of who we are, not just what we do. This is why the sacrament of matrimony is raised to a sacrament by our blessed Lord. You know, the Pharisees, remember that line in that passage in Scriptures when the Pharisees come up to Jesus trying to trick him, and they say, Moses allowed a man to divorce his wife, to write a writ of decree of divorce against his wife. What do you say? Well, Jesus goes right back to Genesis in his answer. And he says, Moses allowed you to do that out of the hardness of your hearts. But I tell you, and he should know because he was there, I tell you it was not like that in the beginning. In the beginning, God created male and female. And for this reason, a man leaves his mother and father and clings to his wife, and the two become one flesh. It's interesting to note in that answer that our blessed Lord gave, he borrows from both accounts of creation. He borrows from both accounts of creation in the first and second chapters of Genesis. He harmonizes them both and says that this is the plan of Almighty God from all creation. That this union is more than just a physical union. It is something much, much deeper that is expressed in the physical. It has its material reality in the physical, but it is not just a material reality. When he says that Moses allowed you to do this out of the hardness of your hearts, think about that for a moment. Moses allowed you to do this out of the hardness of your hearts. He allowed you to break apart what I had established because you were stubborn and mired in sin and your hearts were not open to the truth. So he allowed it. But I tell you, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. All of Catholic theology relating to teachings about sex flow from this understanding. And what is this understanding? That human beings are raised to a dignity where they cooperate in bringing new life into existence with God. With God. That in the marital bed, Almighty God there is present, as He was present at the beginning of time, bringing creation into existence, as He was present in the Garden of Eden, scooping up the clay from the ground, forming Adam, and breathing His divine life into him. So He is present in the marital bed, as husband and wife join to create this new life with God. This is sacred. This is sacred. Planned Parenthood wants to interrupt the sacred. They want to introduce pills and condoms and devices and break off this union of man to woman in a total self-giving, and not just a total self-giving to each other, but a total participation in the divine. There's this, and there's this. There's the cross in the sexual act. It happens on the earthly level in cooperation with heaven to earth and earth to heaven. Planned Parenthood wants to break that cross because they want your money. Because they want your money. Because they want to fulfill an agenda of wiping out poor people, wiping out non-whites. The history of Planned Parenthood in the United States is nothing but a eugenics program. It always was from the beginning. Margaret Sanger founded Planned Parenthood. Before that, she called it the American Birth Control League, or the League of Birth Control, or something like that. I can't remember the exact name. And her whole mission was to essentially wipe out undesirable races. And she said, this is all available information, this is no secret. Of course, Planned Parenthood today says, well, that may be what she wanted to do, but that's not what we want to do. Really? Then why are you traveling around the world murdering children from undesirable populations? In the United States, more than half of the abortion mills are located in the very poor neighborhoods, in the ghettos, and they target blacks, African Americans. The African American population of the United States is roughly 11 or 12%, depending on which numbers you look at. A little more than 1 out of every 10 Americans is African American. But the number of abortions, that happen, 1 out of 3 are African Americans. Some numbers were released just a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that the number of pregnancies in New York City and the boroughs that end in abortion, 41%. It's almost half. Almost half of the pregnancies in New York City end in abortion. 41%. Of that 41%, 2/3 of them are Hispanics and blacks. Don't tell me Planned Parenthood has gotten away from its roots. Planned Parenthood will love getting their foot in the door in the Philippines. You're not white, and as many of you as can be killed as possible while they make money off you, they will love that. They live for that. Who's behind all of the money?